I am the greatest.
I wish I was 50 years younger and I'd kick your ass.
You won't do shit. Just stick and move. And making you understand. Now stick and move. Keep your hands up.
Welcome to a new episode of the Stick and Move podcast. I'm your host, Trey, here with my homeboy, Sam. And today we are discussing probably the most controversial boxing bout of all time. And that is the bout between Julio Cesar Chavez versus Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker. Before we break down the cards that Sam and I have, I want to go into a little history about the fight. So, Sam, tell me, what is your recollection? I know it's been a while since you've seen that fight. What do you remember from your memory from watching it then?
I remember this fight. I don't even know how many years back it was, but
Right.
it was one of those fights where I knew that Pernell Whitaker was a tricky fighter. I knew he
Right.
had good defense, and Chavez had just beaten Mildred Taylor, and I think Pernell Whitaker had beaten. If I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he beat Azuma Nelson. I don't remember, but
Azuma
anyway,
Nelson, yeah. Nelson was in the twilight of his career. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyways, but I remember this fight, and I thought it was going to be a wash. I thought it was
Mm-hmm.
going to be Chavez completely dominating. I know that they met in the middle. Chavez was going up, Whitaker was going down, and but I mean, I still respected the fact that Whitaker was an '84 Olympic gold. You know,
Right.
he was a five-time champion, three weight divisions. You know, but I just like no, he doesn't have the pop, he doesn't have the power to stop Chavez. Chavez is gonna kill him. That's what I
Right.
thought. You
Mm-hmm.
know, but as it turns out, what I saw that day, and I just rewatched it after decades, it still stands what I believed happened in that fight, at least in my opinion.
I already told you my story of this fight like 30 times on this podcast. It was a holiday when Cesar Chavez fought, The entire neighborhood would get together, everybody would get together. I mean, you can arguably say that behind Mike Tyson in the 80s and 90s, that Julio Cesar Chavez was the biggest draw in all of boxing at that time. And same here, bro. I'll admit to you too. I mean, I remember watching that fight then, and I was just speechless because we were watching a cultural hero of ours just have no answers. And the reason why I wanted to do this episode is because it's so funny. Any topic we talk about, we could talk about greatest heavyweights. We could talk about greatest uh, fights of all time. Doesn't really matter. That Chavez Whitaker fight is always brought up in our comments. And I want to ask you this before we get into our cards. Let me ask you a question, not to cut you off. I apologize. Do you think if Chavez had one loss or three losses or the same record as Pernell Whitaker, or like two losses or something like that, you think this fight would have been that big of a deal? The robbery?
It was a robbery, bro. It was a
Okay.
robbery. It didn't matter the records or it could have been two ordinary Joe Blow fighters fighting. No titles on the line, bro. It was a robbery. I mean I saw it again after what 20 years.
Hey guys, Trey here. If you love today's controversial episode and you want to see our channel grow, please drop a like, subscribe, and also comment. Sam and I are always going back and forth with those commenters on our controversial topics and opinions, and we love it so much. So go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe, most importantly, so our channel can grow and we can give you guys the best content as possible. Sam and I were always uploading multiple videos a week, and we want to continue doing that, and we need your help. So go ahead and subscribe, guys. And most importantly, like I always say, don't forget to stick and move, baby.
I see it again, and it's the same result, man.
Well, let me ask you this. Not so much, a robbery is a robbery. I agree with you. But if he didn't have that record, if he came in there limping, just like after a loss or something like that, do you think that this fight would have had the same cachet here? What, almost 30 years later, 31 years later, and it's still everybody's number one or number two greatest robberies of all time. In other words, what I'm asking is that undefeated record. To me, what makes it egregious, this robbery, to last 30 years already, 4 decades already, is the fact that I honestly think that if Chavez had a couple of losses already, I think it would have been a forgotten fight in history. And I think because he was undefeated, it was a blatant, it looked like, at least, I don't know for sure, but it looked like a blatant protection of that undefeated record. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's why it's emotional. I agree with you. It is emotional for a lot of people that love boxing, because we saw how an undefeated record got protected in that instance. So that's my thought on that. You got any thoughts on that?
Well, I think the judges and the fans did not like Pernell Whitaker's style of fighting.
Mm-hmm.
You
Oh,
know, I
interesting.
did.
Okay.
They didn't favor that style
Right,
where
right.
he would all you saw was Chavez head hunting, but
Mm-hmm.
people didn't see that Pernell Whitaker wasn't running, bro.
No,
Do
he
you know what I'm
wasn't. He
saying?
wasn't. He
He
wasn't.
wasn't running. It
Mm-hmm.
was a well thought out plan, moving to the right, using his jab, throwing his left hook. It was just at first people were saying, I remember this years and decades ago, that Pernell Whitaker was running. He was not running, bro.
No, he was not running.
I just saw the fight again,
Yeah,
and I stand corrected. He put on a master plan, and I think the judges didn't like it. They didn't like that style. The
yeah.
crowd didn't like it, and the judges probably followed. You got to remember, Don King was involved in this.
Absolutely. That's what I was trying
Don
to get to. Right. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Don King was involved in this, okay? And it was all business now. They were preparing for something bigger,
Mm-hmm.
so um I think the judges didn't like his style of fighting, period.
Okay, so let's break it down. I'm go ahead and post up the scores here. Now, you had a more generous score than I did. You had it 113 118, while I had it 110 to 118. I had it completely decisive for Pernell Whitaker. And I'm noticing I like to break down every 3 rounds. Maybe we could do every 4 rounds on this one. I noticed in the first 4 rounds, you had the first round as a swing round, 10-10, and then Chavez winning the second. And so you pretty much had an even fight going into four, while I had it
Mhm.
3-1 Whitaker. I had the first round for Chavez also. Why do you think it was even those first 4 rounds? Go ahead.
Because they were feeling each other out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In round 4, when Pernell Whitaker was dominating the fight, that's when the frustration in Chavez was setting in.
Okay.
When Chavez was trying all night to try to cut off the ring, and he couldn't. Whitaker was smooth getting out of the way. Whitaker was smooth in sticking and moving.
Right. Right.
Well, at least in round 4, what I saw is that from there on in, the frustration, um, um, Chavez was just frustrated, and Pernell just took over from there. Pretty much the rest of the fight.
Let me say something, man. Chavez, to me, what I loved about him is that he could fight any style. You know what I'm saying? Like, I never sweated him fighting a lefty ever, or a brawler ever, because he had that intellect and that iron chin, which, he would lose later on in his career. But the way he fought those first early rounds, I did have it for Whitaker, but dude, I gotta admit, even if we go down to the fifth and sixth round, I had it also for Whitaker for the fifth, and I went back to Chavez for the sixth. But 6 of the 5 rounds, of those are that early part of the fight, I
Mm.
think they could have been swing rounds. I could have seen where Chavez was going, and the reason why I say that is because he uses that wide stance to fight a lefty, which is what pretty much what you're supposed to do when you're an orthodox fighter. You're supposed to have that wide stance. And what I loved about what Whitaker did was that every time because Chavez was moving forward the whole fight, every time Chavez would try to go in or headhunt, Pernell had a sweet right foot pivot where he would come in and he would pivot out, and Chavez would have to turn around and literally push him to the other side of the ring, and boom, it was just like a constant rotation. Okay, go ahead. Your thoughts. I'm sorry.
Yes, and also what I observed, I observed, Pernell Whitaker is one of my favorite fighters, but
Right,
I did see that they were sneaking in a lot of punches in the
right,
breaks,
right.
you notice that they were sneaking a
Hmm.
lot of punches in the breaks, and I thought that was a little dirty of Pernell Whitaker doing, but I mean, it was part of the plan, bro. It was part of
Yeah.
the plan is to not just box, but to beat his mind, you
Hmm.
know, and that's what Pernell did. He
Right.
frustrated Chavez.
Hmm.
He left Chavez looking one dimensional. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Just Chavez was just chasing him, bro. Just chasing him the whole fight. Pernell Whitaker, it was people were waiting for Pernell Whitaker to get chopped down. And Pernell Whitaker showed that dude that he took it, man. He took
Hmm.
it and that he delivered.
Right.
And he just in his defense and he not being trapped, not falling for Chavez's traps, that's what dominated the whole fight. It was a
It,
good,
it's
great plan.
it's interesting you say that because you know I always gave Julio Cesar Chavez credit. I mean, there's been other boxers before him, of course, to break the Philly shell. But Cesar Chavez broke the Philly shell so well against Roger Mayweather both times that they fought that's, in my opinion, added dimensions to Julio Cesar Chavez offensive arsenal, even defensive. What Pernell Whitaker did was take that away. And I think what Pernell Whitaker did was he was like a prelude to how to fight the Mexican style. You know what I'm saying? Like and it took years. I mean, Pernell Whitaker did it because when you saw Chavez fight or the Mexican boxers before Chavez, and even in the 2000s with Morales and Barrera, when you saw those guys fight, they had a tendency, no matter who they were fighting, to make them fight their fight, to make you fight that Mexican style, whether you wanted it or not.
Mhm.
Pernell Whitaker, the credit I give him is that he stayed disciplined to the plan and he did not get into the fight that Chavez wanted. And Chavez tried to break that guard. He tried to go down, but that sweet footwork that Sweet Pea had was just too much. And I think he cracked the code on how to fight a Mexican style boxer. And honestly, I wouldn't see that for another 10, 15 years to where the Mexican style was just too much for any other style. I mean, it's an interesting thing what I saw in that fight because I don't want to say that Pernell Whitaker was dancing because he was not. He actually got in the phone booth, especially at the very end of the fight. He didn't mind brawling with Chavez because I think he knew that Chavez was tired. He looked Chavez to me looked out of shape. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Chavez underestimated the will that Pernell
Hmm.
Whitaker came with. I think he
Hmm.
underestimated um, Pernell Whitaker's intelligence in the ring,
Right.
his defense, and
Hmm.
and he just couldn't trap him. Pernell
Right.
just he couldn't contain him,
Right.
and look, man, I just saw the fight again. Pernell
Hmm.
Whitaker dominated Chavez mentally, bro. He
Hmm.
fought
Hmm.
him toe to toe. He fought him
Right.
toe to toe.
Yeah.
And because I thought he had, those moments I thought he had ran, but this was when I was a teenager or whenever it was.
Hmm.
But I just saw the fight again, and no, man, Pernell Whitaker went toe to toe with Chavez. He outsmarted him. He just beat him to the punch. He squared with him. He went toe to toe, and he took whatever Chavez was throwing at him, and
So
it frustrated Chavez, and he couldn't do anything about it.
so let me ask you here, because at the end of the fight, you had the ninth and 10th round as swing rounds.
Hmm.
So what that tells me is that this could have been, according to your card, 14, 15, 17, 16, 15, 14. This could have been a 113, 114 fight for Sweet Pea Whitaker if you would have felt the swing rounds could have gone to Chavez. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, that's right. But Chavez didn't do enough. You
Okay.
know what I mean? Yeah, Pernell had already, in my card at least, Pernell had already won too many rounds. It got to the
Hmm.
point where Chavez needed to really knock him down or knock him out, and it was
Hmm.
just not going to happen. I
Yeah.
think that they were both a little gassed at the end, and
Hmm.
Chavez, he knew it. Chavez knew it. Chavez knew it. He had to do something, and he
Hmm.
did. But
Hmm.
that Sweet Pea came back and finished the round, and that's why I had a
Oh,
10-10 round.
okay. So yeah, I mean, you had a. I think. I mean, I had it a that first 6 rounds. 4 out of 6, I could see where Chavez could have taken it because they were very close swing rounds.
Hmm.
But that second half, 7 through 12, I thought Whitaker pitched a shutout. And with that being said, that's why I have it 110, 118 total. Okay.
Hmm.
Even going into that last round, I think Whitaker did enough to take it. Now, I want to talk to you about something. I did a little research on this fight, and that wasn't the Chavez I remembered watching. And I wanted to know what the heck, why did he look so different from Pernell Whitaker? I mean, I know Pernell Whitaker is one of the all time greats, but so is Chavez, obviously. But why was it so decisive? And I have one theory that I came up with, and I want your opinion. Maybe I'm being a little too far fetched or whatever, but Chavez, bro, the months leading into that fight, 1 year from before that fight even happened, he fought 6 times in 1 year leading up to Pernell Whitaker. Okay. And
All right.
his last two fights before that, in other words, he fought 8 times in 4 months in 14 months. Okay. He literally fought, I think it was Frankie Mitchell and Hector Camacho 1 month apart from each other, 1 year, like 13 months before his fight with Pernell Whitaker. And in that time, he fought 6 more times. I think his last fight before Whitaker was about 5 or 6 weeks before this fight with Whitaker, while Whitaker had more of the break that you and I are used to, where boxers fight 2 or 3 times a year. Do you think by any chance that Chavez was just, I guess, tired, overboxed at that time? I'm not saying it's a valid excuse, but is that worthy enough to say when it comes to boxing that maybe that's why Chavez didn't look like the old Chavez? You think that maybe he was burnt out?
I don't know, man. I'm just telling you what I saw.
Right.
A professional's a professional fighter. This is what I saw. I just saw a
Hmm.
fighter in Chavez
Hmm.
who underestimated his opponent.
Hmm. I agree.
Basically, that's what I saw. What Chavez did, 6 fights in 14 months. I mean, dude, this is Las Vegas, bro. Oh no, this was San Antonio.
San
But
Antonio.
this was San Antonio. But it was a big title fight. If Canelo, Chavez went all 12 rounds, and I didn't, I just saw frustration. I didn't see him get tired. I saw him get frustrated.
I bring this up because, look, And you and I, we've been watching boxing forever, and it's always the same thing: the winner or the loser. There's always excuses. And there's always a fan base behind the loser saying, "Oh, well, this happened. The gloves, the he was hurt. He had a messed up shoulder." There's always excuses. Why can't this be a valid excuse for Chavez fighting 8 times in a year almost, leading up to the Whitaker fight? Maybe if he would have done the 2 fights in a year, he would have came in a little bit more fresh, a little bit more prepared. But because that's the Mexican culture, then he had to take on as many fights as possible. I'm just saying, is it a valid excuse that wasn't the Chavez we normally see?
Oh man.
I mean, you and I talk about it all the time. We
Yeah,
talk about
you know what?
activity.
You know what? Me
Talk to me.
personally, that's not an excuse.
All right. All
I
right.
I I don't think I don't think that's an excuse. Chavez knows who he was up against. They should have guided him better. You know, just my opinion. I don't think it
But
had anything to do with being tired. I think he got in a fight. He underestimated his opponent, and I think that he got frustrated with Pernell Whitaker's style, and that was it.
here's the elephant in the room. This is why I bring it up too. And you brought it up a little bit earlier. Dude, what was Don King known for? Running his fighters into the ground for the big payday. He did it to Larry Holmes. He did not. I'm starting to believe that he did it to Julio Cesar Chavez. Just he put him through like a mill of fighting. You
Yeah,
know,
Duran. Hmm.
Duran also. I was just about to say that. I mean, I honestly think if it wasn't management, I think Don King was the puppet master, and I think he aged out Cesar Chavez because let's be honest, after this fight and his fight before, oh my God, the guy he upset Meldrick Taylor. I honestly think that he was already aged out. I mean, he was 31 at this fight, and he already been at 89 fights almost, or actually 89 fights, right? Or 87 fights,
He
and
was at 87-0.
87 and 0. And I think that, dude, that's a lot of tread on the tires and fighting 5, 6, 7, 8 times a year. I mean, I just think that it was a perfect storm for Pernell Whitaker, in my opinion. Any last
Mm-hmm.
thoughts?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I'm not going to discredit Pernell Whitaker for what he did. Um, could have been, who knows? I saw Chavez that came in swinging, and it was just what I saw was just frustration that he couldn't
Hmm.
handle Pernell Whitaker's style, and that was it.
Right, right. Okay, so do you have any final words? I'm going to end. Well, let me say this real quickly. I agree with you. I'm not trying to take anything away from Whitaker, but as boxing fans, we got to look at both sides of the story. I like to think that I did not see the Chavez I was used to, and maybe I'm thinking he was a little bit burnt out. Is it an excuse? 100%. But still, I mean, you fight the fights you did. I mean, he didn't really have to do it, but I mean, we don't know the circumstances. You know what I'm saying? At least,
Mm.
at least, I haven't done the research enough to know that. Okay, so do you have any final words for our viewers out there?
That thank you guys for commenting. I'm trying to catch up with all the comments. Thank you for sharing and liking our videos, and we hope that y'all continue the support to our channel. And if there's any topics y'all want us to talk about, let us know, and we'll make an episode on it.
All right, very good. And I can't say anything better than that. So, like I always say, guys, don't forget to stick and move, baby.
I am the greatest.
I wish I was 50 years younger and I'd kick your ass.
Just stick and move. And making you understand. Now stick and move.